reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord.
Jesus came down with the 12 and stood on a stretch of level ground with a great crowd of his disciples and the large number of the people from all Judea and Jerusalem and the coastal region of Tyre and Sidon. And raising his eyes toward his disciples, he said, "Blessed are you who are poor, for the kingdom of God is yours. Blessed are you who are now hungry, for you will be satisfied. Blessed are you who are now weeping, for you will laugh. Blessed are you when people hate you, and when they exclude and insult you, and denounce your name as evil on account of the Son of Man. Rejoice and leap for joy on that day. Behold, your reward will be great in heaven, for their ancestors treated the prophets in the same way. But woe to you who are rich, for you have received your consolation. Woe to you who are filled now, for you will be hungry. Woe to you who laugh now, for you will grieve and weep. Woe to you when all speak well of you, for their ancestors treated the false prophets in just this way." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Does something seem a little off in the Gospel this morning? I mean, if I were to ask you to name the Beatitudes, you probably couldn't name them all, but if I asked you how many, you'd probably say there are 8 Beatitudes, because that's the way we learn them. If you look at the Gospel, I don't find 8 Beatitudes. I find 4 blessings, blessed are you who are poor, and I find 4 woes, woe to you who are rich, and they may add up to 8, but they are not the same as the 8 Beatitudes that we learned. And the difference, of course, is a different gospel writer. Each gospel writer was writing for a specific community, even though it comes down to us. When he first wrote it, it was for, in the case of the 8 Beatitudes, for Matthew, who was writing for a Jewish Christian community, who knew well all of the Old Testament. And so he was presenting Jesus to them modeled after Moses, who went up on the mountain. And the 8 Beatitudes are from the Sermon on the Mount. And he's presented as Moses, who in the Old Testament came down from the mount and presented the 10 Commandments to the people. Jesus now from the mount presents his new commandments, the 8 Beatitudes. When you look at them, they seem to have turned all the world's values upside down. Blessed are the poor in spirit, and so forth. So that is the purpose of Matthew's writing. Luke, on the other hand, is writing for a different community. That's a more diverse, but they have one thing in common. For the most part, they're very poor. The first disciples of the disciples were not the wealthy. The wealthy Romans didn't become Christian for some time. The word that Jesus had sent to them, words of consolation, could be heard by the poor. They didn't make much sense to the wealthy. And that's why we have to be careful how we hear it. What does it say about us? But what we heard in the commandments, the Beatitudes in Matthew, were modeled after Moses. What do we have as the model here? It's what we heard from Jeremiah. It was very common to put in comparison, blessed are you and woe are you. Now, it isn't that Matthew doesn't do it. He just doesn't do it after the 8 Beatitudes. Turn back to chapter 23, and there you'll find the woes. And put them next to it, and you see how they pair up. In this case, Luke doesn't want to wait that long. So he tells us right away. And his people, of course, are open to this message. Blessed are you poor. Notice also the mount is kind of distant. It's a little bit lofty. And even the language of the Beatitudes that we learned are a little lofty. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Who are they addressed to? When you and I hear that, do we say, oh, that's me? Luke, on the other hand, is now down among the people. As Pope Francis tells us, he wants to make sure that Jesus was with the sheep and maybe even smelled like the sheep. And that's how you can tell. But the fact is that he wanted them to know that Jesus spoke a language. So he says, blessed are you poor, not just the poor in spirit. Blessed are you who are poor. Blessed are you who are hungry, you who weep, and you who are hated. That made sense to his audience. What does it say to us? Sometimes I wonder, is it that Jesus is saying that then wealth and hunger, food and a good life, joy in your life are not for us? They are God's blessings. So what can make it a woe? It's when we receive the riches that God gives to us and we think it all for me. And is that not our society today? Everything's all about me. I was thinking about even the tree that's planted, where it is. It's just talking about one tree, and oftentimes we can identify with the tree. But the tree didn't plant itself, and it cannot feed itself. It has to be in the right position. That's where God comes into our life. So as we listen to this gospel today, hopefully we'll walk away from hearing it that Jesus was saying, riches and food, those things are okay, but they're given to you to be shared. There's the key. Look at what you have received as God's blessings. Do you reckon them as God's blessing to you? You do it best when you reach out to your brothers and sisters and share those same gifts.